I want to thank Senator Coons, my colleague from Delaware, for organizing a bit of a floor colloquy of members to take place this afternoon to discuss the one-year anniversary of something that we call the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or the Iran nuclear deal that was signed literally a year ago tomorrow by 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council plus Germany, along with Iran. At the time, a year ago, there were a lot of skeptics as to whether or not Iran would keep its part of the bargain and not go forward with developing nuclear weapons. We heard arguments that they would evade inspection in Iran, that they would never live up to their obligations under the agreement that we signed a year ago tomorrow. We heard that they couldn't be trusted. We heard that they would not keep their word. We heard any number of accusations and speculation. We heard that the people of Iran wished death upon America and wished to continue the antagonistic relationship with the U.S., dominated U.S.-Iran relations after the Iranian Revolution. I just want to say, a year later, I believe there's a good reason to believe that the critics have been proved wrong when Iran took those irreversible steps to dismantle its nuclear weapons program, steps that were certified by the nuclear watchdogs at the International Atomic Energy Agency. For example, international inspectors certified that Iran had reduced its stockpile of enriched uranium by 98%. 98%. And that the remaining enriched uranium is only enriched to levels consistent with the peaceful energy uses. Inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency also certified that the nearly 15,000 centrifuges for enriching uranium have been dismantled, leaving Iran with only its least sophisticated centrifuges that can be used solely for peaceful purposes. And the inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency have certified that the special heavy water reactor that could produce the kind of plutonium needed for a nuclear bomb will produce no more. Inspectors saw firsthand that the core of that reactor had been filled with concrete, rendering it incapable of ever producing plutonium again. And inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency continue to assess that Iran is keeping up with its commitments in the nuclear agreement. I've never been to Iran, hope to go someday, but a place I have been to is Southeast Asia. And I served 3 years in a war in that part of the world with a country with whom we were at war, in some cases almost a proxy war, but at war for many years, the Vietnam War. The names of 55,000 men and women on a granite wall about 2 miles from where we're standing here today, close to the Lincoln Memorial, 55+ thousand men and women who died in that war. 55,000. When the war was over, war was winding down, my active duty tour with the United States Navy as a naval flight officer came to an end. And I resigned from my regular commission, assumed a reserve commission, and continued to fly with the Navy as a P-3 aircraft mission commander in Naval Reserve for another 18 years. The month after I retired from the Navy as a captain, I was a member of the House of Representatives. I led a trade delegation, not a trade delegation, but a delegation of 6 of us, all Vietnam veterans, members of the U.S. House of Representatives, back to Vietnam in August of 1991. We went at a time when, even though we were not at war with Iran, there was still great animosity between our two countries. Some of that spurred by the fact that thousands of Americans, MIAs, we never found out what happened to them. They disappeared, some cases almost without a trace. And we had very little cooperation from Vietnam to try to find out the truth of their demise. There's a lot of speculation that they were being held up as POWs in Iran, not in Iran, but in Vietnam, in Cambodia, in Laos. And there were actually photographs of people alleged to be our MIAs that were being held in captivity. We didn't know where, but the assertion was in Vietnam or Cambodia or Laos. It turned out during our congressional delegation trip there in August of '91, turned out that the pictures that were shown on the cover of Newsweek and Time magazine and front pages of newspapers all over this country were not Americans, they were Soviet nationals. And it was really an effort by people in Cambodia, bad people, to try to extort money apparently from the families of the MIAs, the American MIAs who never came home. And that the people in those pictures are actually Soviet nationals, not missing Americans. During the midst of all this back and forth about the missing MIAs from America from that war, 6 of us participated in a congressional delegation. We went to Vietnam. We met with the new leader of Vietnam, a fellow named Dam Moi. He just became the leader, August '91, of the Communist Party, making him the top leader of Vietnam. And we presented to him from the Bush administration, George Herbert Walker Bush administration, a roadmap to normalized relations. And this was a deal. Vietnam, if you will open up your archives, open up your war museums, allow us to explore, excavate crash sites, have free movement around your country to see what if Americans are spotted or people believe the Americans are spotted. If you will do all those things, we will reciprocate. We will move toward normalized relations with your country. And there was a lot of lack of faith on sides of both countries, Vietnam and for us Vietnamese. Were fearful we'd move the goalposts, and they did. Even if they did all the things they were required to do under the roadmap to normalize relations, we'd move the goalpost and still not normalize relations. And for our part, there was concern that they'll never do those things anyway. So why should we bother? At the end of the day, we engaged with the Vietnamese, and they engaged with us. They did the things they were supposed to do. We did as well. We normalized relations about 4 years later. John Kerry, John McCain did good work in the Senate. Our delegation did, I think, good work in the House. And one administration, George Herbert Walker Bush administration, passed the baton to that of President Clinton, and normalized relations were established about 4 years later. The first U.S. ambassador to Vietnam was a member of our delegation, former POW, former Air Force pilot, Pete Peterson. Fast forward about 25 years later, a month and a half ago, President Obama was nice enough to invite me to join him on a trip back to Vietnam, with along a couple of congressmen as well. And a lot had changed in those 15 years, 25 years, a lot had changed. And today, the United States of America is Vietnam's top export market. Today, Vietnam is part of the 12-member Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership that we are endeavoring to establish and get approved here in 11 other countries. The Vietnamese announced while we were over there a month and a half ago a $11 billion deal with the Boeing. They're going to buy 100 737 jets valued at $11.3 billion from Boeing. They announced that they were going to buy from Pratt & Whitney, big aircraft engine company, another $3 billion worth of engines to put in 63 Airbus. The president lifted the ban on arms sales to Vietnam, and a lot of other announcements were made. While we were over there, we learned that a survey of the Vietnamese people, 2 surveys done earlier this year, one indicated that the Vietnamese people, 84% of them had a favorable opinion of the U.S. today, 84%. Another survey indicated 95% of the Vietnamese people have a favorable opinion of the U.S., highest of any nation by highest opinion, highest regarded any nation by the Vietnamese people. Us. They like us more in Vietnam than we like us. Kind of ironic. Well, meanwhile, in Iran, Iran is also, not unlike Vietnam, a young nation. About 78 million people who live in Iran. More than half of them are under the age of 25. And they have a great affection for our country. Some of their leaders do not, but many of the people do, particularly the younger people. And they want a better life with us and a better relationship with us. They've had elections since the joint agreement was agreed to, and the elections have enabled, both in the parliament, and in the Council of Experts, which elects the next supreme leader. The moderates, the reformers, made great strides in those elections earlier this year. Very encouraging results. A year later, among the other things that have happened, the Iranians have decided that they've had a hard time accessing capital to be able to purchase things. Unanimous request for one more minute, Mr. President. Just as the Vietnamese have finalized a large deal, purchase of American jets, the Iranians announced about 2 weeks ago that they'll be purchasing a number of 747 jumbo jets built by Boeing, 737s, 777s. The value of the deal is worth about $17 billion over the next 4, 5, 6 years. So I would suggest to our colleagues who said, you can't trust these guys. Well, we still have problems with what they're doing with some of their missile testing. We have problems with the support of Hezbollah and some other terrorist groups like that. But for the most part, they've kept their word on the deal, the joint deal that we signed, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And we're starting to see some commerce transact between both countries that actually inure to our bottom line to strengthen the economy of this nation. So I just want to say that is it time for us to spike the football, to say everything's fine, it's going to be fine for... No. Eyes wide open. That's important, eyes wide open. But having said that, I think most fair-minded people would say, so far, so good. Let's continue to be vigilant, and hopefully a year from now, the second anniversary of the signing of this joint agreement, we'll have even better pieces of news, better news, not just for us, not just for Iran, but for the whole rest of the world.